There's a phrase that gets used in environmental crime circles, and the first time I heard it, it stuck with me. Midnight dumping. It sounds almost quaint, doesn't it? Like something a cartoon villain would do. But it's a real practice, and the name is literal. Under cover of darkness, someone offloads waste that should have cost a fortune to dispose of properly and just leaves it. By morning, it's somebody else's problem. When I started researching this for one of my books, I expected shadowy conspiracies. What I found was something more mundane and honestly more disturbing, because the mechanics of illegal dumping aren't clever, they're cheap. Here's the thing to understand: disposing of genuinely hazardous waste, industrial solvents, contaminated sludge, certain chemical byproducts, is expensive and heavily regulated. You need licensed haulers, permitted facilities, a paper trail documenting where every drum went. That paper trail is called the chain of custody, and in theory, it follows the waste from cradle to grave. In practice, that chain is exactly where things break. Investigators and environmental journalists have documented the same patterns for decades. Waste gets handed to a broker who promises cheap disposal, no questions asked. The broker takes the money, and instead of paying for a licensed facility, the material simply disappears down a storm drain, into a river at night, buried on some rural property, mixed into ordinary trash so it slips past inspection, or abandoned in a warehouse that the operator then walks away from. Sometimes the paperwork gets forged to say the waste went somewhere it never did. I'm not going to walk you through specifics because that's not the point and it would be irresponsible. The point is that none of it requires sophistication. It requires only a willingness to make a problem vanish and to not care where it lands. If you're new to the channel, this is the kind of rabbit hole I keep in the vault. There's a link in the description. So why does it persist? Follow the economics. Legal disposal might cost thousands per load. Dumping costs a tank of gas and a quiet night. That gap, that enormous financial gap between doing it right and doing it wrong, is the entire engine of the crime. When the reward is that large and the odds of getting caught feel that small, some people will always do the math and choose the river. And catching them is genuinely hard. A drum in a ditch doesn't come with a name on it. Enforcement agencies are under-resourced, jurisdictions overlap, and by the time contamination is discovered, the trail can be years cold. The people who profit are often layers removed. A company hires a contractor, who hires a broker, who hires the guy with the truck. When it unravels, everyone points at the guy with the truck. The pressure that started it all, up at the top, stays clean. That structure is exactly what pulled me in as a novelist. Because the most unsettling villain isn't the one driving the truck at midnight. It's the executive who never touched a drum, never broke a law he could be pinned to, who simply created the incentive and looked away. That's the kind of character I find far scarier than any monster. The person who lets distance and deniability do the dirty work and sleeps fine because technically his hands are clean. And that's what midnight dumping really is. Not a cartoon villain in the dark. It's a chain of ordinary decisions, each one just profitable enough, that ends with poison in someone's water and no one willing to say they put it there. Now, let me be crystal clear. Everything I just laid out is fiction. None of it is a prediction, a recommendation, or advice of any kind, about money or anything else. So please don't treat it that way. But in a tech world moving as fast as ours, ideas like these aren't as far off as they sound. And that's exactly what makes them worth thinking about. If any of this got the gears turning, drop a comment below. I read every single one. Subscribe to the channel to hear more stories like this, and look below at the description to find more info about the Peril Files and join the vault to get insider information.